5:47 a.m. The engine ticked like a dying clock. Min sat in his rusted 2008 Toyota, both hands still gripping the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. The headlights had been off for 3 minutes. The engine for 2. But his body refused to move. Min knew what was waiting for him inside. Another text forwarded to his phone. Another reminder that their daughter's tuition was overdue. Another update about his mother's hospital room charges from last week. Another conversation where his wife would try to be strong, try not to cry, try not to make him feel worse, and fail at all three. The steering wheel creaked under his grip. He was 34 years old. 8 months ago, he was the head of marketing for a mid-sized tech company in District 1. He had a team of 12 people. He had a corner office with a view of the Saigon River. He had a salary that let his wife stay home with their daughter, that let his mother live comfortably in her own apartment, that let them eat at nice restaurants on weekends and plan vacations to Da Nang. Then the company folded. Overnight. Some scandal with the CEO, some investor who pulled out, some legal mess that nobody explained and nobody could fix. Min went from corner office to parking lot in the time it took to read one email. And now he was here. 14-hour shifts at a construction site in Bintan, hauling rebar and mixing cement alongside men who had been doing this work since they were teenagers. Men who looked at him with a mixture of pity and suspicion. The office guy. The one who used to wear suits. The one whose hands bled the first week because they had never held anything heavier than a laptop. Min closed his eyes. The quiet of the alley pressed in around him. Somewhere in the distance, he could hear the rhythmic scrape of a bamboo broom against asphalt, the street sweeper making her rounds before dawn. A rooster crowed from someone's backyard. The first motorbike of the morning sputtered to life a few blocks away. Bintan at 5:47 a.m. was a world suspended between darkness and light. The street lamps still burned their weak amber glow, but the sky had begun to shift from black to a deep bruised purple. The air was thick with the smell of fish sauce and burning trash and the sweet perfume of frangipani flowers from the neighbor's garden. Min's phone buzzed in his pocket. He didn't look at it. He already knew who it was. He already knew what it said. An oi. Truong tau goi. Hok Phi Tang Ne Tre Qua Han Roy. Ko Jiao Chu Nim Nan Tin. His daughter. Tao. 8 years old. The only person in the world who still looked at him like he was a hero. The only person who hadn't noticed that her father had shrunk 6 inches in the past 8 months. She still crawled into his lap when he came home, still asked him to check her math homework, still drew pictures of their family with bright crayons and labeled them Ba and Me and Tao in her careful handwriting. Min opened his eyes and stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The face looking back at him was a stranger's face. Sun-darkened skin. Deep lines around the mouth that hadn't been there a year ago. Eyes that looked like they belonged to a man 20 years older. Eyes that looked like they had seen things they couldn't unsee. No. That wasn't quite right. Those eyes looked like they belonged to someone he knew. His father. The memory hit him like a physical blow, sudden and disorienting, the way memories from childhood always are. He was 9 years old again, standing in the doorway of his parents' bedroom, watching his father sit on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. It was 1999. The Asian financial crisis had just devoured his father's furniture business. 23 employees laid off. The factory sold for scrap. The family home almost lost. His father had looked up then, and Min had seen something in his eyes that he didn't have words for at the time. Now, 25 years later, he finally understood. It was the look of a man who had nothing left to give and no idea how to keep going anyway. But his father had kept going. Somehow. For years. And one night, when Min was a teenager and the worst was behind them, his father had sat him down in their tiny apartment kitchen and said something that Min had never forgotten, even though he had never truly understood it. God didn't abandon me, son. He was just teaching me how to kneel for real. Min had nodded at the time. He was a good Christian boy. He went to church every Sunday. He knew the right answers. But he didn't understand what his father meant. How could losing everything be a lesson? How could watching your life fall apart be anything other than punishment or abandonment or just plain bad luck? He understood now. His hands finally released the steering wheel. They were trembling. For the first time in 8 months of waking up at 4 a.m., 8 months of hiding his cracked and bleeding hands from his wife, 8 months of dodging calls from bill collectors, 8 months of watching his mother's hospital bills stack up like a countdown to some invisible explosion, Min felt something crack open inside his chest. It wasn't hope. Not yet. Hope was too ambitious for a man sitting in a rusted car in a dark alley with the smell of concrete in his nose and the weight of failure on his shoulders. It was something smaller than hope. Something rawer. Something that felt almost like honesty. God, he whispered. His voice sounded strange in the silence of the car. Hoarse. And used. He hadn't prayed in months. Not really. He had gone through the motions at church, bowed his head at the right times, mouthed the right words. But he hadn't talked to God like a person talks to another person since the day he lost his job. God, I don't understand. The words came out broken. Jagged. Like glass shards being pulled from a wound. I don't understand why this happened. I don't understand why you let it happen. I don't understand what you want from me. The front door clicked shut behind him at 6:15 a.m., and Min braced himself the way a man braces for impact. 8 months of this. 8 months of walking through that door and feeling the temperature drop, feeling the weight of unspoken disappointment settle onto his shoulders like a wet blanket. He had memorized the rhythm of it by now, the silence that wasn't peaceful but heavy, the way Hung would look at him and then look away, the way breakfast conversations had shrunk from dreams and laughter to logistics and avoidance. He pulled off his work boots. The soles were worn through in 3 places. He'd been meaning to buy new ones for 4 months now, but every time he walked past the shoe store, he told himself the old ones still had a few miles left in them. They didn't. He just couldn't afford to admit it. The kitchen light was on. That was unusual. Hung usually stayed in the bedroom until he left for his second job at 7:30, not out of laziness but out of the same instinct that makes wounded animals hide, the instinct to avoid another conversation that would circle the same drain and end in the same silence. But this morning, the kitchen light was on. Min turned the corner and stopped. Hung was sitting at the small wooden table they'd bought together at a flea market 7 years ago, back when they were newlyweds and broke in a different way, the broke that felt temporary, the broke that came with hope attached. Her elbows were on the table. Her hands were folded. And in front of her, open to a page marked with a yellowed receipt she'd been using as a bookmark, was her grandmother's old Bible. She was crying. Not the loud, dramatic crying of someone who wants to be noticed. The quiet kind. The kind that comes from a place so deep inside you that your body can't hold it in anymore, so it leaks out through your eyes without permission. Hung. She looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen, but there was something else in them, something Min hadn't seen in months. Something that looked almost like relief. "M de Congwin sa dem," she said. Her voice was raw, like she'd been talking for hours. 3 hours. From 2 a.m. until 5. Mxin chuachomsuc man. Min didn't move. His body felt frozen in the doorway, one hand still holding his worn-out boot. "Strength for what?" he asked. Hong wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Strength to love you the right way. Not the way I've been loving you." The words hit him somewhere in the chest, somewhere he'd built walls around. "Sutam thang qua," she continued, "M de ka xin chua thay doi hon kan qua min. Thay doi tsong vi qua on. Thay doi tnbac. Thay doi moi Thursday. And hung dem quam nanareg em chua bao goxian chua the doyem. Min set the boot down. It made a soft thud against the tile floor. Mgi on la gan nong, Hong said, and her voice cracked on the word. Kong Phi V on la gan nong. And hung vm de nin on bang con mat sai. M nin on nu mot van de kan jai quiet, Kong Phi nu chong em kan yu thuang. Something shifted inside Min's chest. Something tectonic. Hong, on Kong beat em kem the nu vei. Boy vm Kong in oi. She gestured at the Bible. M de kok trong natam ba thang ne. Moi dem. M movoi nuok de on Kong ne the. M de din v nami de ba lon. Ba lon, min. Lon da la thang Thursday hi sao kai on mat vik. Lon Thursday hi la kaimi on veo veen. Lon Thursday ba la tuan truok. Tai saw M Kong di? Hong looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that made the floor feel like it was tilting beneath his feet. Boy vi ko mot nuoi de den go qua min tuan truok. Min frowned. Ai? Ba tom. Nuoi hong xomo koi duong. Nuoi ma min chua bao gio noi chuyen qua hai foot. Ba den de lam gi? Hong's eyes filled with fresh tears, but this time they weren't tears of exhaustion. They were tears of something that looked almost like awe. Ba inoi, ko dung bo kiwak. Tuathe chong ko moi sang truok kai di lam. Anidang ben chik exisiu, jem veo ke tan jia trenko, va nam mat lai trong bai jie. Tua kong beat on I dang kong wing juji, and hung tua beat nuoi dan on I dang chien dao. Dung bo roy on I. The words landed like a physical blow. Min's hand moved instinctively to his neck, to the small wooden cross that had belonged to his father. He'd worn it every day for 25 years. He touched it every morning before his shift started. It was a habit so automatic he barely noticed it anymore, like breathing, like blinking, like the heartbeat he didn't have to think about. He had no idea anyone had seen him. He had no idea anyone was watching. Ba Tom, he whispered. Kan Nua, Hong said. She stood up from the table and walked to the kitchen counter, where a stack of papers sat next to the rice cooker. She picked them up and handed them to him. Min looked down. His hands started shaking. Electricity bill. Water bill. Both stamped paid. Both dated last month, when he'd come home expecting to find the power shut off and instead found the lights still on, the refrigerator still humming. He'd assumed there had been a mistake, some bureaucratic delay that had bought them another few weeks. He'd been too afraid to call and ask. Ai tra, he asked, though he already knew the answer. Ba Tom. Min sat down on the kitchen floor. Not in a chair. On the floor. His legs just gave out, the way a building collapses when the foundation has been quietly crumbling for months and someone finally removes the last supporting beam. Ba I kan la nuoi de duen truok qua na min, Hung said. Ba lan. Thang truok nua, va tuan truok. Gao. Rao. Thit, tre k. Kong bao gio de lai ten. Kong bao gio go qua. Chi de truok them nu mot mon qua tu tren troi. Min stared at the receipts in his hands. The numbers blurred together. The ink smeared where his tears were falling onto the paper. He was crying. The phone rang at 6:42 p.m. Not a text. Not an email. An actual phone call, which itself was strange enough to make Min stop mid-bite, chopsticks hovering over a bowl of rice. He didn't recognize the number. He almost didn't answer. But something made him swipe right. Min? Is this Min Tran? It was Mr. Hung. The CEO. The man who had called him into the corner office 8 months ago, offered him tea with steady hands, and then dismantled his career in 11 minutes. Min, are you there? I'm here. I've been trying to reach you for 2 months, Mr. Hung said. Your old number was disconnected. I had to go through 3 people to get this one. Min said nothing. Min, I'm going to be direct with you. The company is restructuring again. But this time, it's different. We're launching a new operational division, and I need someone to lead it. I need someone who understands what it means to fail and get back up. I need someone who's been through the fire and didn't burn away, they became stronger. I've interviewed 17 candidates in the last 3 months. Every single one of them had a perfect resume and no scars. They'd never failed. They'd never been broken. And I realized I don't need someone perfect. I need someone real. The position is Director of Operations. Salary is 40% higher than your previous role. Full benefits start immediately. But more than that, I'm offering you something I should have offered 8 months ago. A seat at the table where decisions are made. Not because you've earned it through suffering, though you have. But because suffering has given you something no business school can teach. What's that? Min whispered. Humility. Perspective. The ability to see people instead of just seeing problems. Min, when I let you go, you were a good operations manager. But you were also arrogant. You treated inefficiency like a personal insult. You managed systems brilliantly, but you managed people poorly. I didn't just let you go because of restructuring. I let you go because you needed to learn something that couldn't be taught in a boardroom. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Ripples spreading outward. Touching everything. Min thought about the construction site. The foreman who had taught him to mix cement. The young guy with the tattooed hands who shared his lunch when Min forgot his. The way his body had ached those first weeks, muscles screaming in a language he didn't know they spoke. The way he had slowly, grudgingly, learned to respect men he would have once overlooked entirely. I've been working construction, Min said. For 8 months. I make 1/10 of what I used to make. I know. You know? I know everything, Min. I know about the construction site. I know about your mother's hospital bills. I know about the electricity that almost got cut off. And I know about the old woman who paid your bills and left food on your doorstep. Min's throat closed. How do you know about that? Because she's my aunt. Mrs. Tam is my mother's sister. The world tilted. The same woman who had watched him touch his father's cross every morning. The same woman who had told Hong not to leave. The same woman who had paid their electricity bill and left rice on their doorstep like some kind of secret agent of grace. She was the CEO's aunt. I didn't send her, Mr. Hung said, as if reading Min's thoughts. I didn't even know she was your neighbor until last month. She called me. She said, Hung, there's a man in my neighborhood who used to work for you. He's been broken and he's been rebuilding. Every morning I watch him stand by his old car and pray before he goes to work. That's the kind of man you need. Not the kind who's never fallen. The kind who knows how to get back up. Min looked at Hung, tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling, that smile he hadn't seen in 8 months, the one that reached her eyes and made the corners crinkle. When do you need an answer? Min asked. I needed it 2 months ago. But I'll wait until tomorrow morning. Take tonight. Talk to your wife. Pray about it. And Min? Yes? I was wrong about something. I thought letting you go was the only way to teach you what you needed to learn. But I've come to believe something different now. I think God was in that decision not to punish you, but to prepare you. For this. For something bigger than you could have become if you'd stayed comfortable. The call ended. Min set the phone down on the table. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. And somewhere deep inside him, in that place where faith had been flickering like the fluorescent light, uncertain, wavering, but never quite going out, something ignited. He thought about those 8 months. Not as a punishment. As a furnace. Every drop of sweat on the construction site. Every whispered prayer in the bathroom at 5:47 a.m. Every time Hong had cried in the shower with the water running so he wouldn't hear. Every meal they'd stretched to feed 3 people. Every time his mother had looked at him with eyes that said, "I still believe in you," even when he didn't believe in himself. God had been there. Not in the way men had wanted, not as a rescuer swooping down to fix everything instantly, but as a presence. Steady. Silent. Present. Working in the dark like roots growing underground, invisible until the moment something finally breaks through the surface. He remembered something his father used to say before he died. "Son, God's delays are not God's denials. His silence is not his absence. And the place where you think he's abandoned you? That's usually where he's doing his deepest work." Min had never understood that. Until now. He reached across the table and took Hong's hand. Her fingers were cold. She was still crying, but her tears had changed. They weren't the exhausted tears of a woman carrying too much.